Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Daf Chaf. Previously, we saw a Mishnah that Stam Nedarim is lahachmir, meaning if you make a neder and you don't explain it, and there's two ways to look at it, then we'll be machmir. So, for example, we said, let's say, you said basam maliach. There's two ways to go with basam maliach. It can either be a carbon or it can be avodah zara. Truma, it could either be truma salishka, which is a good neder, or it could be trumas goyrin, truma that we call truma, which is a davar asa, and it would not be. And then we said, but if you mafarish it, then we go after the pirish. If you mafarish it, you go after the pirish. And we're going to continue along that thing. We're going to give a Mishnah, and the Mishnah we're going to he's going to explain a neder, and there's two ways to explain it. Some more far-fetched than the other, and even if it's far-fetched, we'll go ahead and say that what we will be makel and say that it's not a good neder. So, for example, nada b'cheirim, and he says he makes a neder in cheirim. Again, cheirim we said is a lotion of asering. And we said there's two ways. There's cheirim kahana, which is muta. There's cheirim lebedek abayis, which is asa. The Yomano, now he explains it, and he says, nadarti ela becharmoi shel yam. I made a neder in the cheirim is the lashon of a net. In other words, I didn't mean a cheirim, I meant the net. Becharmoi shel yam, I meant in the net of a sea. And obviously the net of a sea is not something that's asur. It's not like cheirim lebedek abayis, which would be a dava, another would be asa. It means a what? It means a net. Bicarbon. He makes a neder bicarbon, and then he goes and explains it. Nadarti ela bicarbon shel malachim. I didn't mean the carbon is like Kodesh Baruch Hu. I meant presence that they're makriv in front of a king, presence that you bring close to a king. Or Hari Atzmi carbon. He says, I am also myself like a carbon. I have a bone in my house, and that bone I go ahead and I make a neder on that bone. And all these cases, obviously, the explanation is one that my neder is a not good neder. Continues the Mishnah. Koinim ishti nanesli. He says he makes his wife cannot have enough from him like a carbon. And then he explains, my first wife, that I went ahead and I divorced. So he's explaining his neder. If you look at stam of the neder, you'd be machmer and say it's a good neder. If you look at the neder stam, you'd say what? He'd be machmer and it's a good neder. And we don't say that. We don't say it's machmer, it's a good neder. We say, in fact, that what? Al kulan ein nishalin lehem. On all of them, there is no need to go ahead and take off the neder. Again, a neder can come off in one of two ways. Hatara, right? It can come off through hatara or you go to a dayan, and the dayan goes to the head, he takes it off, or a person finds a pesach, and then or charata, depending. Charata is the easiest way to take off an neder. Just you don't have to come off for a reason. You just have to simply regret. Pesach means, had you known that the neder of such and such, in other words, you have to find an opening, the lashon of Pesach, an opening, an excuse to go ahead and remove the neder. But in all these cases, it's not necessary. Ein Nishalem means they're not Nedarim. Ein Nishalem, not Nedarim. Now, Toich Kedei Dibur, as the Mishnah says, Ein Nishalem, it says right away, the Nishalu, right? And if you do take it off, well, you just told me you don't have to take it off. The Nishalu, Ein Shinaisai, we punish him. Umachmirun Aleihem. So we'll see what's the Einish, and we'll see what's Machmir. Again, very cryptic Mishnah, exactly why the Mishnah seems to go ahead and contradict itself in one statement. On one hand, saying, Ein Nishalem, and then immediately saying afterwards, if you do, you're punished. Okay. The Chacham say, no, we look for a Pesach, not Harata, we look for a Pesach from another place. And we go ahead and we teach him, and we teach him that he shouldn't be noy kalas reish ben. So this Mishnah, the Ran is found, fellas, on Yeches Lamed Beis. The Ran is found on Yeches Lamed Beis. Because sometimes Mishnayos go together. So let's see some of the Rans. We're going to start where it says, Neder b'cheirim v'omar lo nedarti. On Amid Beis, Ches Amid Beis, right before it gets very wide, about 8 lines up. Neder b'cheirim v'omar lo nedarti ela b'charmei shel yam. Hashtem mefarish v'ozal. Now the Mishnah is coming to explain the lashon of Ketzad Pirush and Lahakal. What's an explanation of Pirush and Lahakal? Now, we saw an explanation of Pirush and Lahakal, guys. Basam Aliyach, right? Truma, we saw that already. V'hai denakaluhu b'hani gavna the Mefarsh V'Yazal, V'Nakalahu Bahani Gavnei Dereisha, the listening net Nada B'Cherim V'Amalan Adati El B'Cherim Shel Kahanim. So in other words, why don't we say in the first case, guys, Cherim Shel Kahanim is Mutta, Basam Aliyach is Mutta. So why do we go ahead and say the explanation of a neder is on Daf Chaf Amid Aleph? Why don't we say it's on the Mishnah that we have over here, the Mishnah that we said previously of Basam Aliyach, of Cherim? So on that, the Rabbi answers Revus Ashmin, and it's coming to tell me a chiddush. It's Revus Ashmin. It's coming to tell me a chiddush. Shiafa Pishu Mefarish Nidroi B'Davar Zar, even though he's explaining the neder in a davar that is kind of strange, or as we say in Yiddish, Madina, right? She'eno kol kach mashmais l'shana kechamish l'yam, v'hani achrina l'tani, afilu hachi mehimna. Look at the Mishnah we just said, guys. I made a cherim. You know what I meant? I meant the chamish l'yam carbon. You know what carbon I meant? I meant the carbon of a king. That's me. I meant etzim of my house. They're all kind of far fetched. Whereas basam aliyach is not far fetched at all. So the chiddush over here is a big chiddush. That when we say pirush and lahakol, even the pirush is a davar zor, a davar, a very strange. It's a reach. You know, in English we say it's a reach to say that's what he meant. The mashmois is he meant a regular carbon, not a carbon of a king. The mashmois he meant cherim, which is cherim of bedek abayis, not charmois shal yom. The chiddush is if we can tighten it up, if he tells us that's what he meant, then that's what he meant, and therefore it is not a good neder, and therefore it's not a good neder, and that is the chiddush. Okay, I think that's important. Okay, first wide line in the Ran. First wide line in the Ran. Va'al kulon einish shalom aleichem, on all of them einish shalom aleichem, and all of them you don't have to take it off at all. There's no reason to take it off. However, if nishalu, then we said machmirim v'einshem machmirim. Mefarish b'gemara the hachikamar. Einish shalom aleichem b'talmid chacham. If it's a talmid chacham, then you don't need to take it off. The chinad the b'cheirim v'amaloin nedarti el b'chamer shal yom mihim, and he's believed. It's like tzarich she'ela. You don't have to remove the neder. Consequently, v'nishalu, in the next line when it says nishalu klaimar, ihavi inish delayim none. It was a person that's not believable. Somebody tells us when I said chayrim, you know what I meant? Chamer shel yom. You know, he tells us this reach. He tells us this far-fetched idea. Ukigain shehu ama aretz. For example, he's an ignoramus. Ulafikach tzarich she'ela. Then oinshim aisai im nagu heta bedavar. In other words, if he goes ahead, he said the neder, and then he was over on the neder, and then he explains it. We don't believe him. We'll punish him for going ahead and being over on the neder. Kainu shabay lishal oinshim aisai. Before he took it off, we'll punish him. As we'll see in the Gemara in a second. Okay, so basically now we have the Ran foreshadowed us the Gemara. So let's go back to the Mishnah now. And we have a little understanding.
Anytime
sure.
you take off a neder, right?
Yeah.
Anytime you don't want the neder, you miscarry, right? Yeah, right? That's what it is. That means I don't want it. Obviously,
Again, sometimes they don't let you do charata. Sometimes you have to find a Pesach. You know,
I understand that.
we won't allow.
Neder, if I don't want
you.
It's
Right. Again, correct. But not for every neder will we allow that. Right. Now, so the chiddush over here is this is the explanation of the stam and neder that the guy explains. And the chiddush over here is explaining some really weird cases. Chayrim means chamer shal yom. Korban means karbanos of malachim. Atzmi means an etzim in his house. Wife means the wife. I'm asking the wife that I divorced already. You know, these are all reaches, right? Nonetheless, if it's a talmid chacham, we'll believe him and say that what he meant it, and there's no need to remove the neder, as they say in Yiddish, is nishkain neder. However, and if he's not a believable person, then he'll be required to take it off. And if he doesn't take it off, meaning, and he's no yiketa before taking it off, we'll punish him. Yes.
If he's a talmid chacham, what is he doing for the rabbis?
Talmid chacham means a believable person, someone who's believable. In other words, he said, I don't know what motivated him to say the neder. I'm not sure what motivated him to say the neder. But again, this is the example of that we will believe the person to, again, a neder is not a great thing. If he's a talmid chacham, obviously, I don't know what the mitzias would be. Why he wants to get a person off his back, maybe say you're kainim upon me, really not meaning it, but the person will believe to avoid, being around him. That'll be a motivation enough for making the neder that he's asking the person on himself, right? And even though he doesn't want to make a neder, so could be that mitzias. The guy is working him like crazy. He doesn't want anything to do with him. He says, "Kainim, you like me, like chayrim shal yom. Good, you're in chayrim." So the guy said, "Well, nothing to do with him." But meanwhile, he don't want to make a neder because making a neder is not a good thing. So the Talmud Chacham, he used to love this to go ahead by then. That's it. That would be a scenario, right? That would be a scenario that would work out.
Hey, can you close the mechitza, please? Can you close that over there, please? Just drop it out, come on. Thank you.
Always sound. All right. There. Okay, so Hagufa Kasha, says the Gemara, in itself is shver. Hagufa Kasha. I'm going to, in one hand, you say, Einish Alin Lehen, you just told me that you don't take off the neder because it's not a neder. On one hand, you told me you don't take off the neder because it's not a good neder. Good. Tani, and then you go back and say, in Nishalu, if you don't take it off, so you punish him. So again, as we spoke out, in one sentence, it's problematic, and you know the answer already. So Amar Rav Yehuda Hachik Tani, here's what you said. The Kulam and all of them ain't tzrichim sheila. There's no need to go ahead and remove the neder because it's not a neder. The mamurim that it's not a neder, that's b'talmid chacham. That's why by a person who's a talmid chacham. Aval ba'amal aretz, if you say amal aretz, sheboli shol, who comes to ask, who comes to take it off, okay, now what does that mean? What does that mean? We're machmir, in other words, it's the easiest way to take on the neder, is, like Yankel was saying, is just regret. I regret making a neder. Much more difficult way is finding a Pesach, an opening. So the chumrah over here is we won't let him off the hook with the easier way of charata. We won't let him off with the easier way of charata. Will require a much more severe way of Pesach. Elo einshin hechi dami. How do you punish him? What's the punishment? Where's the punishment? Says the Tanya. Misha nazar v'aval naziroi. Someone who makes a neder and he wants to be shoyal on the neder, but he didn't. He wanted to be shoyal, and einis kakenloi. We won't go ahead and get involved with him. At sheyinig by isa kiyam shnoig beheta. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, he wants to be shoyal for 10 days. He was in Naziris, and then he wasn't like Naziris. Now he wants to have charata. We won't do it for another 10 days. We'll match up the days of letting him off the hook from the days that he was over on the neder. That's what it means. That's by a small Naziris. Let's say he's Nazir for a year, 30 days will do the job. We'll keep him, won't let him off the hook for 30 days. Right? Since the Rabbanan said we won't let him off the hook without a Pesach, right? We won't let him off without a Pesach. Beidina the mistakaki of its shaper. When Beznet does let him off the hook, is not doing the right thing, and therefore Avachar by Yaakov Omar Mishamtina Lei, we put the Beznet in Chayrim for going ahead and not going ahead and being machmir. Let's see the Ran over here. Ul Inyan Halacha. Ul Inyan Halacha. Kaim along Kirabanan the Masnisan the Army. The Nedarim Malolo these Nedarim Charmer Shal Yom Atzmi Carbon all these things. Ein Ein Shemaisa. We're not going to punish the person. U Paschina Behu Nami Becharata, and we'll go ahead and we won't find the Pesach had you known just simply Becharata. Okay, Parshin Masnisan. Bahani Mili Ben Nedarim Halolu Dafka these Nedarim. Avon Ben Nedarim Deraisa. Nehiti paskina behu nami becharata to the kaimlon beidach perkin. The hilchas of paislim becharata, as we're going to see in the next parak, a person can be paiseh becharata. Miu misha over alei and boli shol. Someone's over on a neder the raisa and wants to come take it off. Einis kakanlei at sheyinig asa and sheyinig by issa. You'd have to keep the neder for a while. You'd have to keep the neder for a while. But sumer rabbanon the miskakanlei the kami hachim mishamtinalei. We're going to and if it's sumer rabbanon, they let him off the hook before he was like Isser in the neder that he made, then we'll put in that summa davon and chayrim similar to over here. Okay, but I guess really, basically, this is we'll see that when we do when we do the sugya of Pesach. Okay, the next Gemara is a digression, a huge digression. It's a very famous Gemara, and it's a siman in Shulchan Aruch. It's a siman in Shulchan Aruch. It's a siman that many of you might have learned when you were chasanim, right? And many of us are old enough to have forgotten it. But it's siman reish mem in it's the halacha how a person is minoig in time when he has relations with his wife. This is the sugya of how one is supposed to have relations with their wives, and we'll do it quickly. Person should not be accustomed to go ahead and be involved in the darim. If you're going to go ahead and be involved in the darim, you can't be over on a shvur. Now we spoke out how severe shvur is. We spoke out the other night from Motzei Shabbos that by the Chumel it says Lo Yanaka. We saw a beautiful Eben Ezra who spoke out, right, how powerful it is to be over on that. So a neder is bad enough, but if you're not accustomed to keeping neder, right? You may chas v'shalom come to you everyone on a shvu, which is a very severe thing. Another good piece of advice: don't be accustomed to be a ruggle next to an amaretz. You know, an amaretz is a whole mesefta called demai. Amaretz is choishev for not taking off meiser, and therefore you may end up eating tevel. Alti ruggle eitzel koyin amaretz, and don't be ruggle even if you're a koyin. Not be ruggle next to the koyin amaretz. Truma tmeya. So Gersi will go ahead and feed you truma tmeya. Right, regular koyin, a regular person truma darais is even worse. But truma, is mitzvah shemayim, but even truma tmeya. The altarba sicha ema isha. Do not go ahead and speak too much to women, right? In the end, you may chas shalom come to an act of znus. Rav Acha Rabbi Yeshaya Amar, kolat soife b'nashim. Anyone who looks at women and an extended period of time, soife b'ala de avera will come in the event to come an avera. V'chal mistakel be'ikva shel isha. Anyone who looks at the heel of a woman, havle bonim she'enum huganim. You'll have children that are not so proper. Now, let's see Taisus over here. Havle bonim she'enum huganim. Mida keneged mida. Afisha mistakel be'akiva shel isha. Shezeu inyan erva. Now, this heel does not mean a heel. It means oisei makam. Shel isha zeu inyan erva. L'kachavle bonim she'enum huganim. The person looks at parts of the woman he's not supposed to look at. He'll have children that will come out from that part. They won't be so good. As we Tosfos learns, nida keneged nida. Amr Yosef ubi ishtay nida. It's speaking about his wife when she's a nida. Afilu ubi ishtay nida, even his wife when she is a nida. Amr Shimon ben Lakish. Ikva diktani, it means b'makam atnufis. It means the oisei makam. Shum mechubin keneged akev, which is, I guess, going down parallel. It's parallel to the heel. Okay, Tanya. Ba'vortia yerasa al penechem, right? That it should be that the years should be on your faces. Pasuk and Shmos. So busha. This is first the busha. That one of the hallmarks of Klal Yisrael is busha. We had the Gemara fellas in the ayins. I don't know if it's ayin dalet, ayin zayin. I think ayin dalet could be in Masechta Yevamis. We had the whole sugya with the Gevonim. That the Gevonim, all they wanted revenge. They wanted revenge. They didn't care. And we spoke out that they were not part of Bnei Yisrael. Their cruelty, because they weren't by Sinai, they weren't part of Bnei Yisrael. In order to be a Jew, we spoke out, you have to have been at Sinai. So this Indian of Sinai, that's what we got. Anu by Shonim Rachmanim Megomle Chasadim. The Indian of Busha, the Indian by Shonim, were people who are at Sinai. People who are at Sinai. So it says, Babotia Yerasa al Pnechem Su Busha Levilti Tachatu Malamet Sheha Busha Mevila de Yeris Chet. Busha, the busha doesn't mean embarrassment. It means a certain feinkeit, edelkeit, a certain fineness that will bring you to your escape. Mikan amru simin yafa ba'adam shu baishin. A simin yafa in a person is a baishin. It's a very humble person, very gets embarrassed easily for these inyanim. Achim momrim kol adam mevayish loivim meheru chayta. Any person who's mevayish, he won't sin that quickly. Gebusha A person's not a balgaiva. He's again his finest. That certainly would be a shmira for your escape. Umisha elay bushas panim. I think this is a Gavaldic right that I just spoke out, guys. Be a Jewishley umdu a voice of Sinai. A person's not a baishan, a person under baishan rachman magom lechasadim, right? Then they didn't stand by Sinai. Again, we spoke out the Gemara in Yevamis. The person has certain qualities, certain cruelty. Check his yichus. Check his yichus because we're not from Bnei Yisrael. You see, if a person's not a baishan, le umdu a voice of Sinai, because that's where we got it from. Bavutia yirasa pnechem, right? That's where we got it from. This is in Shmos Chaf in Pashas Yisro. This is where we got it from, fellas. People who are at Sinai had that. I'm Rabbi Yochanan ben Davoy, and now we're going to speak about the formation of a child and the result. The children come about. There is the machshava and the machshava person has b'shas tashmish, and the way people live with each other b'shas tashmitz has a bearing on what will be with the child according to this Gemara. We'll see that there's another day on this Gemara that disagrees. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Davoy, Daled Dvarim Sochuli Malchi Asharis. Chigrin, if they mahavayin, when children are cripples, where does it come from? They shall hoifkin es shulchanam, because at time of relations, they literally turn over the tables. Big machloikis, what turning over the table is. Many Rishonim, that's bia shaloi kedarka. That's bia shaloi kedarka. Also, not pshat is that if the woman is on top and the man's on the bottom, that's called turning over the table. Now, that would cause chigrim. Ilmim, ones that are what are ilmim, they're mutes. If they mahavayim, if they shemenashkin aloy say makam, because they kiss the isha by say makam. Charoshim, what causes charoshim? What causes deafness? If they mahavayim, if they shemesaprim b'shas tashmish, they speak at the time of tashmish. We're going to go over these things. Suma, if they mahavayim, why are children blind? If they shemestalkim by say makam, because they look when that's supposed to look. They look by say makam. Uriminu aleshu estira. Shalu, they asked as Ima Shalom. Now, Ima Shalom was the wife of Rabbi Eliezer Gadol. It was the wife of Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus. Her name was Ima Shalom. They what's the reason that Bonecha Yafai? Why is the reason that you have such beautiful children? The Yaiser. Why do you have such beautiful children? So Amr Lehen. So she told them, Eini Misaper Imi. He does not speak with me. Meaning, he never asked me for tashmish at the beginning of the night, nor at the end of the night. El b'chatzai salaya, in the middle of the night, or the middle of the night. Ukeshu misaper, when he's megala, when he does have tashmish, megala tefach mechasa tefach, he reveals the tefach and he closes the tefach. The doimer love kimisha kafu shade, and he has relations as if he's being forced by a shade. What's the reason? The nimsu, we'll go over this in a second. The nimsu bon of boin l'day mamzeris. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean that it means mamzeris, but the question is, how can you tell me you can't talk b'shas tashmish? Avili Eliezer Hagadol, Rebbe Eliezer ben Horkinus was speaking. So the kasha. In Tashmish, you could speak about other things you can't speak about, how the weather is, or anything else that you shouldn't be speaking about. So let's see some runs over here. In other words, the whole das is that you're again in the middle. You won't be thinking about other women. So again, as I spoke out in the Hakdama, what a person thinks about Tashmish has an effect on what the children would be like. So the reason why he had tashmish in the middle of the night, because then he would not be chas v'shalom thinking about somebody else. When he has tashmish, megala tefach mechasa tefach perk mishemesu aminan she'atiru legalas tefchayim the katanim. You're able to go ahead and take down 2 tefachim of clothing for urinating. But who hoya megala tefach ma'osan tefchayim? You only be megala tefach mechasa tefach kloimev tefach. Sheni Nisha Mechusan. The other tefach would remain closed. So he knows he has his clothing on, except Machan that he had to do tashmish. Kimisha and when he did have tashmish, is Kimisha Kafu Shade. Shayim Mamar Ka'adam Anitrad Machma Shade, like a person who's running because of a demon, Shakafu, that's forcing him. Alma Misapa Hay B'Shas Tashmish, Misapa Tashmish. So it's very interesting over here, the lashon of Shulchan Aruch. The lashon of the Shulchan Aruch over here. He says the lashon in Siman Reish Mem Sif Ches v'yishamesh be'ema u'biyira. You should have tashmish with fear and right with fear. Commercial custom of Rabbi Eliezer. So you megala tefach and mechasa tefach. The doime kamisha kafu shade. Pirish be'ema u'biyira kilu kafu shade. So the kafu shade is according to according to the Shulchan Aruch doesn't seem to be an inyan of thinking about other women. As the Gemara's mashma, it's mashma that it's an inyan of ema v'yira, that the shade is like you'd be scared of a shade. That's what you do. Okay, the Gemara has a different daya. It's brought down Shulchan Aruch again. This is the psak halacha that we put the Rambam passes like we pass them like. Right. Rabbi Yochanan, Zudir Rabbi Yochanan ben Davai. Those four things that the Malachei Asheris told him. The four things we said not to go ahead, Rod, and what's the reason why your children like that is because you turn over a table, or because you kiss like some makom, or you speak b'shas tashmish, or you look. He goes, the halacha is, he says the following: whatever a person wants to do with his wife, he's able to do with his wife. Whatever a person wants to do with his wife, he's able to do with his wife. Again, there's a different days in Shulchan Aruch, but what that means. But whatever he's able to do with his wife, he can do with his wife. It's still Shulchan Aruch is brought down that it's still also. So he's the machloikis is on Hoifich al Shulchanai, but the position of Tashmish, Rabbi Yochanan is disagreeing with Yochanan ben Dorai, and he says the position is not like Rabbi Yochanan ben Dorai, but the halacha is that a person might have a position of what he wants to do, he's able to do according to Rabbi Yochanan himself. Mashal basa abba me besa tefach, basa that comes from the besa tefach. Ratzal oichle b'melach, he wants to eat it with salt. Oichle tzli, wants to eat it broiled. Oichle mevushal, oichle sholek, overcooked. Oichle the chain dak abba me besa atzaya that you get from the fish guy. Amra, you can eat it any which way you want, and the tashmish any way you want. Amra meya, man malachei asharis. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Dorai said, "Who's the malachei asharis?" It must be Rabbanan. It can't be Malach and Mamish. Must be Rabbanan. The time of Malach Shares Mamish. Amayam Rabbi Yochanan ain't Allah Yochanan Medavai. Inu Bekir B'Tzuras Avlat Fei. Now we're discussing. Rabbi Yochanan Medavai is discussing why a children is formed a certain way, why a child is formed a certain way, right? B'Shas Tashmish, the child is going to be formed, and if you do this, it's going to be a summa. If you do this, it's going to be a cripple. If you're going to do this, if it's speaking Malach Shares, obviously they would know more about these hidden things than Rabbi Yochanan. So therefore, Malachei Sharis must not really mean people. It must mean my curly Malachei Sharis, Mitzayne Ke Malachei Sharis. They're distinguished by Malachei Sharis. Hey, fascinating. My son Yehona's son, he always asks me like, "What daf are you holding?" So I told him. So he goes, "Oh, the Chashan Shmuz." I said, "Yeah, the Chashan Shmuz." So he said, "There's a fabulous, crazy pshat." He said, "This unbelievable pshat." He said, "Where did Gerim come from?" He says, "When Gentiles, the Shas Tashmish, they have the right kavana, the kavana Shem Shemaim." He quoted. There's a Siddur Yavitz, the Yavitz. The Siddur, famous Siddur from the Yavitz, and by Leil Shabbos, he wrote some Leil Shabbos that Leil Shabbos was the oina for Tashmish, and the Yavitz brings there that even two guys, where the Gerim come from. Two goyim have the right kavanah b'shas tashmish. Just so you see that the kavanah of the formation of a child plays very much into what a child is going to be like. Again, we have the famous incident in Vayetze where Yaakov influenced the gender of the sheep and the color of the sheep, because when the sheep was in heat, he put sticks in front of him, and what they looked at, what the mistalkel at, it had an impact. We had the Gemara that Rabbi Yochanan, he would go ahead, go to the mikvah, and the woman would come out of the mikvah. They should see him because he was in brachas. He was in the shufat, the Yerushalayim, the last of the beautiful people of Yerushalayim that people should see, and the women should see him. So they should think like him. So very Very again, this goes to the crux of the matter of this very, very, very interesting Gemara, but difficult to say share on. Says the Gemara Vayta. Ahida asel lekanei the Rabbi Amr loy Rabbi arachdi loy shulchan v'hafchu. So she was asking, my husband wanted to literally switch the table, and she was wondering, and he did. So Amallah. So Rabbi told her, right? Rabbi said to her, Biti, Torah, the Torah, hitirasech. Bani masalach. It's that we paskin that what kol mashad and ratzli. Ahi dosa the kamei the Rav Amulay Rabbi arachdi le shulchan v'hachu Amulay mashna min benisa. What's different than a fish? Okay. Anyway, leisasur achrei levavchem. What does it mean? It's leisasur achrei levavchem. Amar Rabbi al yishta adam b'kaiseh v'yitain anav b'kaisacha. B'shas tashmish. A person shouldn't drink one from one kais and think about what another kais. A person, let's see, Ran here, guys. We'll do the Rans over here. On the right side, up. Al yishta adam b'kaiseh sheb'shash niskake k'mishta when he lives with his wife. Layitain ena bisha cheres afilu hi ishtay. Let's see, he has two wives. He shouldn't be thinking about what the other wife. He shouldn't be thinking about the other wife. Amravina loynitzucha eladafilu beis nasha. Even what for two wives. The pasuk says uber roisi michem hamordim v'apoishim bi uber roisi. I'll select right michem from you hamordim those who are rebellious v'apoishim and those who are poisheya bi and those who go ahead and do averis against me. So Amar Reb Levi elu b'nei tisha midos. These are the b'nei tisha midos b'nei asnat mashkach. So each one of this stands for something else. Okay, what does it stand for? So the aleph stands for b'nei ema, that a person puts too much fear on his wife that she should have tashmish with him. The aleph and the samich in asnat is anusa. He physically is ma'anis his wife. The nun is in snua. B'nei snua is that what? He doesn't like her. He hates her. And therefore, the Ran says he'll think about another woman. We'll get back to this in a second. And the nun is b'nei nidui, right? She's menuda, right? She comes on to one is menuda. B'nei tamura, that's shabal achas minashav kasavashi tzurasa. He lives with one of these wives and he thinks it's another one. So we're going to see about Leah and Rachel, guys. So it's about Leah and Rachel. B'nei Meriva. So the Meriva is what's the Meriva? B'nei Meriva. He doesn't hate her, but there's a fight between them. B'nei Shichros, he's drunk. These are children that are born from these relations. B'nei Gerushas Halev, right? That he wants, I guess, to divorce her. B'nei Eruvia, right? She lived with other men. And B'nei Chatzufa, that she's toivas bepeh. She goes ahead and asks him for tashmish. So these 9 things would cause the children not to be so be difficult. Okay, so what's this? Listen to this. All right, this is in Reish Mem again in Orach Chaim. It's in the Magen Avram, and the Magen Avram is going on what b'nei Tamura. That you think it's one, and it turns out to be another. Afilu shtei nashim, even both their wives. Going, he thinks about one, he thinks he's with one, and turns out another one. But Sarchian says the Magen Avram, the Halo Yaakov niskaving l'Rachel uba Leah. Yaakov was niskaving for Rachel, and he ended up living with Leah. And the children, the Chayr, are very good children, right? So you tell me that it's not, it's a Bal Kasha, right? That's what he asks. So Ubesimin Yudmem Kosav Mishum Zeh. No, it's fascinating. This is the Marami Panoi. The Marami Panoi, he always says very, very he's the Bene Gilgulim, you're bringing all these things. So the Marami Panoi says that there was a Chesar and Ruvain. What was the Chesar and Ruvain? He wanted Eretz, go to Eretz Yisrael. You can be in Eretz Yisrael. What? You're going to be where? You're going to be in Eva Yarden? You're going to be in Eva Yarden, right? How's that possible? So he says the reason is because he was the union of Yaakov Avinu, who thought it was Rachel and turned out to be Leah. Umikomakim tzarchi and sheichas v'sholim and mordim v'apoishim. On saying Ruvain, he's from the mordim v'apoishim uvepracha hinis abmi biyazu kumashikosav hatoisis biyavamis. In other words, we have a cloud, guys, that in the first bia, a woman doesn't get pregnant. So that she got pregnant from the first thing was the big chiddush nifla, right? So what Hashem's going to make a chiddush to what? To make Ruvain be born with a chesaron. So he's not buying the teretz of Merami Pano. That's the Magen Avraham is not buying the teretz. Tzarich loyma the dafke kishara rachel shecheves b'mita v'niskaven l'kuv zeh b'yachach niskaven l'leya tachta. It must be that what he thought it was Rachel, he was mechaven for Rachel, and then it turned out to be Leah. Aval Yaakov b'shas kanisasay v'chupa ro Leah v'niskaven l'gufa rak shesava sheshma Rachel leslama. In other words, Yaakov was niskaven for the one who was there. He didn't know it was the wrong one. He got married, right? I have his covered. When he was niskaven, was he niskaven for that one? Yeah. So when is it what doesn't work out when he's niskaven for one and it turns out to be the other? He wasn't niskaven for the other. He was niskaven for this one. This one turned out to be the other, but his kavanah was for this one. The case that we're speaking about over here, Tamura, is when you're niskaven for one, and that's not the one you're mechaven for. But Yaakov Avinu was mechaven for that one. And so that's his teretz over there. So that's fascinating. I saw an opinion that she took a bet and says the word was Dafka was not Nisabra from the first beer. As a result, Dafka Nisabra was not Nisabra from the first beer, but it's a nice kasha. Nice kasha. What? Yeah, but yeah, it's true. Yaakov is correctly racial signing.
Rachel wasn't supposed to have any children, right? She only had children because of Leah, because of Leah, right?
Right.
You have a good, I was going to say. Have a good.
Good.
Anything good.
Yeah. Now, the Omer of Shmuel ben Achmeni, Omer of Yonason, Kololim sheishtoi tabas. Anyone that a woman is taveh, a husband for tashmish havelei bonim shafilu b'dorish l'Moshe Rabbeinu loyu k'moisam. Shneimar hovluchem anashim chacham nevoinim uksiv v'yachachas roshish of techem loy ksiv nevoinim, right? Uksiv yisachachem agorim uksiv bnei yisacha yardei bina liitim. So here's asking a kash like this. You just told me that woman is bnei chatzufa is a woman who asks tashmish from her husband that it's not a good thing. Fred the Gemara, what are you talking about? Leah, you see, she went ahead and she asked. As a result of her asking, Yisachar was born, and by Yisachar it says, Yisachar chamar garim uksiv yoydei bina liitim. They were nevainim. So by Moshe Rabbeinu they were just chachamim, not nevainim. So but Taveya then nevainim. So you see that it's a higher madrega to ask. So I can say bnei chava is not so good. And that Maria says, Ahid the Meratza would say. They don't say it openly. Says the Ran, the Meratza would say, Shemafata say bedava ritzu yapias kaleya shleiyom Yaakov elalosava ela. Just said, turn my way. She wouldn't ask openly, say tashmish that you wouldn't do. To Meram is that she wants, that is okay. The Rachel brought him.